It up somewhere.
Okay, well, I think it's time to start our meeting. So
Hello.
everybody please mute so that we avoid any distractions or background noise during our meeting. And I welcome everybody. We're so happy to see all of you this evening. We truly appreciate your continuing support to donating together to the nonprofits in our local community. This is really our first big Zoom event where we're following our standard process. This summer, we had a special, unique event with special rules based on a certain topic, and we got really wonderful feedback, and we plan on doing that in the future just for summer events. But this event, we're following our standard process. We've made a few adjustments in that we only have 1 hour to do this all in, and the presenters will have only 8 minutes instead of 10 for their presentation, and then there'll be a question answer for 4 minutes instead of 5. And we hope that this will ease the transition from presenter to presenter, and we can stay within the time that we have for this meeting. Do note that this is being recorded. It allows us to have access to everything that's been said and the answers to all the questions. If you don't want your image recorded, please stop sharing your video, and therefore you're turning your camera off. We'll use the chat for all questions. And right now, we'd love to hear from you and say hi and let us know what's your favorite part of being a member of our giving circle. The agenda for tonight, Lynette, you want to bring up the agenda? There we go. Okay, so we're going to reintroduce the core team. We did that this summer, but we're going to repeat that because we've got lots of new members attending this evening. Then we'll have the nonprofit presentations with Q&A. We'll have a group discussion where we will also use the chat for questions. And with the time allotted, we'll go through as many questions as we can. Lynette, who is hosting this Zoom event and managing the speakers, she will read the questions, and we will do our best to answer everything. And I'll talk about voting, and we'll then make the selections for the 3 nonprofits for our February event and closing remarks. So to begin, I want to introduce, I'd like actually each of the core team members to introduce themselves to you so you get to know about us. We are a group of volunteers who meet on a regular basis throughout the year. We plan the events, we maintain our bylaws, we make improvements to our website, our FAQs, and we do communications to keep all of you well informed. So to start out, Lynette, would you like to speak first?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Lynette. I'm the IT core team member, and I manage the website and other little technical aspects of the team. I joined 100 Women Who Care because I wanted to make a difference when I first moved here, and this was a great way to learn about charities and donate.
Thank you, Lynette. Naomi, you're next.
Hi, everyone. I'm Naomi West. I am the event planner for the core group, and that means Zoom now. So thank you all for being here. We're thinking that this is likely what our February event's going to be too. So we're glad to see higher participation and realize that it's not as ideal as being in person, but appreciate your time. I am going to be the timekeeper this evening, so I don't mean to be rude, but I will let each presenter know when they have a minute left for the presentation and when their time is up, and then I'll track the time on Q&A to make sure we stay on schedule. Thank you again.
Thanks, Naomi. Next is Melissa.
Hi, everyone. I'm Melissa Thomas. I am the membership focal for the core team. So sending out welcome emails, tracking any new information, any questions you might have. And I joined the 100 Women because I wanted to be a part of giving that I knew it was doing something. So since I couldn't donate enough to really make a difference alone, I love the idea of coming together to make a difference.
Thanks, Melissa. I guess I'm next. I'm Paula Rothkopf, and I'm the leader of 100 Women Who Care. I joined in 2015 when there were only 18 members. It's been an awesome journey to get to 100, and I've really, I've learned so much over the years about nonprofits and our community that I didn't even know existed. And I really appreciate networking with people who share the passion for giving. Thank you. Susan, you're next.
Hi, everyone. I'm Susan. I'm the newest member of the core team. I started in February of last year when I read an article in the Seattle Times about the group. And I thought, this is for me. This is really a great group of women who are doing really important giving and donating to our community. So I love it. I happen to be the sponsorship focal. And that's kind of on hold right now because there's a lot of other things going on that people are sponsoring for. So we'll get back to that. But once we're back in the swing of things, it's just gonna be nothing but fun. Thanks.
Thank you, Susan. And last, Virginia.
Hello, I'm Virginia Heineman, and I am the core group's charity focal, as all the charities on the line know. I'm responsible for contacting charities when they're chosen to participate in an event and helping them understand what our processes are. And that's it. I've been with 100 Women about 3 years now, I think. And I just get a lot of satisfaction out of giving and hearing about different charities, and it's a great thing to do.
Thanks, Virginia. Getting back to our agenda now, we'll have the 3 nonprofits make their presentations. We've done it alphabetically, so Havens Community Connection, presented by Danielle Madrid, will speak first.
Okay, I guess that's me. Thank you, ladies, for having me, for just inviting me to come and share about Havens Community Connections. I'm the founder, so I want to start by telling you a little bit about how this whole thing got started, how we help women in domestic violence find their life raft and find their way to a healthier future. So it got started maybe, I was about 5, actually it was maybe 10 years ago now. I was in the middle of just coming out of an abusive marriage. I would go to church or to my kids' school, and people would tell me that they know a woman they'd say, you know, I think she's in a similar situation to what you're in, and I really don't know how to help her. Can I connect her with you? And I'd say, sure, I am probably only a step or 2 ahead of her in this whole process, but sure, I'll talk with her. So we'd sit down and we would talk, and you know, we would connect, and I'd say to her, you know, listen, what's happening to you in this abusive situation, it's really happening to you. Sister, you are not alone, and you are not crazy. And just to see the hope in her eyes, just to have somebody who believed her and could understand her was just, that's what made my heart swell. Even though I was just slightly ahead of her in this whole process. And then I would say, listen, do you have a therapist or do you have an attorney? And maybe they did, maybe she didn't. And I'd say, well, if you don't, then well, here's the name of my attorney. Here's the name of my therapist. I don't know if they're accepting new clients, but if they aren't, maybe they can refer you to somebody who is. And that was happening for a couple of years as I was getting out of my situation. And then I just decided that, I could help a lot more women if I did this on a larger scale, in a nonprofit model. So the nonprofit, I actually filed and got my 501c3 about 2015. But I've been doing this, connecting with women and connecting them with members, just resources in the community for about 10 years. And so how we do what we do is, I know of several women who had also been through an abusive marriage, and we all got together and decided we wanted to help these women. And I also knew a couple of therapists who wanted to join the team. And these couple of therapists created a 2.5-day training program for the women who had been there. So not only do they have the experience of being there, but they've also gone through an extensive training to know how to walk beside these women in a safe way, in a confidential way that's safe for everybody. So when a woman will call, she'll call our helpline. She'll go through an intake, and then she'll be connected with what we call coaches. And we decided we like the word coaches better than advocates because we feel like victims need advocates. And a coach just feels more dignified. It's more uplifting. It helps her to get out of that victim mentality. And so we'll walk with these women just one-on-one through their journey, supporting them, because it's who better to understand a woman who's been there than a woman who's been there, who better to understand a woman who's going through it than a woman who's been there. So we'll walk with her. Usually it's about 3 to 6 months, and we'll connect her with the resources within the community that she needs. Does she need a therapist who specializes in domestic violence? Does she need an attorney who understands what happens when domestic violence is playing a part in a divorce and is familiar with and experienced with high conflict divorce? And then that's essentially what we do. We do one thing and we do it really well. We walk with these women, connecting them with resources within the community. And what I noticed when I was talking with women is that there was a gap for affluent women. And when I say affluent, I just mean she can pay her bills and have some discretionary income left over. There was a gap because, perhaps she had the resources within the marriage, but maybe she didn't have access to them. So therefore she didn't qualify for any of the traditional resources that are out there, because on paper she had the resources. So there was a gap in that way, and also in support. A lot of her family and friends, it was hard for them to believe that what she was going through was real, legitimately abuse, because it doesn't always look like what we think abuse looks like when we're talking about abuse in, I just call it affluent relationships. A lot of times when we think of domestic violence, we think of somebody who's got that wife beater t-shirt on and he's beating his wife. And yes, that happens, but we don't talk about what happens when the abuse is only emotional or psychological or financial. So there was a gap in support because she was always feeling like she wasn't believed. So I noticed a gap. So when I go out and speak, which I'm not doing much lately, I talk about what happens when abuse happens in affluent relationships and how there is that gap of resources and believability for this community of women. And I can tell you that during this pandemic, it's really hard. Women are locked up with their abusers. They're not able to get out like they used to. So they're not able to hear about Havens and what's happening with us and to be able to reach out to us. So we've determined that we really need to change our strategy. Getting appointments with therapists, it's hard for these women. So being able to connect to Havens through even their therapists is difficult too. So in changing our strategy, what we really need to do is access these women through social media. And that's going to require us hiring a professional social media expert, somebody who can help us to get on the different platforms like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, to help us build our identity and our brand on social media, and to be able to target the demographic of women that we are looking to target and be able to get in front of them in a way that's very effective, and to be able to post relevant content so that it's always in front of them.
1 minute.
Thank you. So that's kind of just the Reader's Digest condensed version of what we do. There's a lot more to go into that obviously we don't have time to go into, but we've determined that after doing our research, it's going to cost about $900 a month to hire this professional social media expert to be able to do what we need to do to be able to reach these women, especially during this pandemic when they're not able to get out and find out about us. So that's how the funding will help us to change our strategy and our outreach to be able to reach these women in a more effective, broader way. So, thank you. Especially being National Domestic Violence Awareness Month, we'd really like to be able to start our campaign just as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Danielle. Folks, please use the chat to ask your questions. Lynette, do we have any questions for Danielle?
We don't have any just yet.
Okay. Well, Danielle, if there aren't any questions and there's anything else you would like to add, feel free.
We just got one.
Lynette will let us know when there's a question.
Oh, I have a question.
Oh.
It's from Melissa. How long do you typically work with a woman who has come for help?
About 3 to 6 months.
Okay. Your next question is from Amy. What is your service area?
We serve just the greater Seattle area, the greater Puget Sound area. I guess we're located on the east side because I'm on the east side, but we have clients all around the greater Seattle area.
Cool. Our next question is from Tracy. How many volunteers or how many are served per year?
This year, we've served maybe 5 because of the pandemic. Women just aren't able to get away to call. But in previous years, we've served maybe about 20. I mean, we're just getting up and running. We're new, we're young as a nonprofit. So about 20 a year, except for this year.
One more question from Susan. How many do you have on your staff?
Paid staff, we don't have a paid staff. We have all volunteers, and I'd say they're about a dozen.
Wow. Next question is from Cynthia. Do you charge or ask for donations from clients?
No, she's been manipulated financially enough. We don't want anything from her financially. All of our services are free.
Those are all the questions so far. Does anybody have any more questions? Oh, Tracy, Kenny asked one more question. What is your budget?
Our budget? Well, in order to do everything we want to do, it's about $165,000 a year.
Is that income, sorry, Lynette, but it's easier than typing. Is that income coming from grants or donations?
Right now, we haven't met our budget. So it would come from donations and grants. We do get some grants and we do have donations, but if we were to have a full budget, it would be about $160,000-ish a year.
We have about 1.5 minutes left on Q&A if anyone has any other questions.
I have a Linda Giddens who said that you did a nice presentation, Danielle.
Thank you.
Which I agree with.
I know I'm supposed to use the chat. But I'm going to do an exception. So the therapists and coaches Are they all volunteer? In other words, they're not paid, they're volunteering to support these women.
Everybody is volunteering right now because we don't have the funding to pay anybody. I mean, that's why we want to be able to pay the social media expert, because we've had a couple of volunteers doing it and it just hasn't been effective. So we've determined if we really want to make the impact we need to pay somebody.
Thank you.
I have a question from Susan again. Gee, if you received a donation from 100 women, what would you use it for?
We would use it to hire that social media expert to be able to help us with our outreach, to be able to help us reach these women during this pandemic, because we're not able to reach them in the traditional ways that we've always been able to reach them. They're stuck at home and so are we.
Cynthia asks, what's in the budget?
Well, it'll go to hire some staff to be able to pay an executive director, somebody to run this, to somebody to be able to pay the therapist, the team to do the trainings. It will pay for outreach. It will pay for some professional consulting, some business consulting to help us to know the best ways to grow the nonprofit as a business. It will go toward helping these women. We'd like to be able to help them put some money down for maybe a retainer for an attorney, if we can help them to do that, as a lot of women don't, maybe they have the finances, but they don't have access and they just need a little bit of money to pay an attorney to get them started. It would go towards things like that.
We've hit our time. I see there's another question, so I'll write it down for later if we have extra time at the end. Thank you, Danielle.
Thanks. Thank you.
Okay, next we have New Beginnings. Susan Segal, who's executive director, will speak.
Hang on. There we go. There we go.
Thank you so much for this opportunity to share about New Beginnings. And Danielle, thank you for your work at Havens. I'm wondering if my PowerPoint can be brought up.
Yes, it can. I just need to. Where did it go?
I'm not counting this as time. Don't worry.
Okay.
I think she's got to be a co-host in order to do that.
Okay.
Lynette, can you put it in presentation mode?
I'm trying. It keeps wanting to switch.
We're seeing your emails, Lynette.
I know. Hang on.
Okay.
But if I stop sharing that. Okay. Sorry for the technical difficulty.
Well, if we can't get it in presentation mode, it's still okay to have it in slide view.
Hang on. Almost got it. Close that. Share screen. There we go. That works.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Well, New Beginnings was founded nearly 45 years ago as Seattle's first organization dedicated to ending domestic violence. Next slide, please. We began as a small shelter for battered women and their children, and over these 45 years, we've grown into a multifaceted agency that supports survivors of all genders in a variety of ways. Our 24-hour helpline is a service unto itself, providing support, information, and referrals, but it also serves as a gateway to our services, which include individual support and advocacy, survivor support groups, legal advocacy, mental health therapy, children's services and parenting supports for survivors, domestic violence protection order and family law legal clinics, and also a very innovative technology-enabled coercive control clinic that we began in late 2018. We also provide financial assistance to survivors to prevent homelessness. We offer bridge housing for survivors and their children who are fleeing domestic violence in our apartment building. And we provide rapid rehousing support for those survivors, which helps them to locate new housing and provides rental assistance and continuing support for up to a year after survivors move out of our bridge housing. In addition, we provide education to the community and professional training, as well as prevention education for youth. Next slide, please. Our goals for survivors are based on their highly individualized goals. But many survivors, most survivors who come through our services leave with knowledge about the dynamics of coercive control, improved confidence and self-esteem. They have a clear understanding of their options. They've built and strengthened support systems. They are safer than they were when they first turned to us, and they've often begun their healing journey. Many survivors need housing, and we're able to provide those supports, and we're able to support survivors' independence and ultimately their liberation. Next slide, please. In 2020, we anticipate providing individual support and advocacy to 450 survivors through virtual survivor support groups, our legal clinics, and our tech clinic. We'll be supporting 200 survivors. We'll be providing mental health therapy to 65 survivors, legal support and advocacy to over 100 survivors, as well as safe refuge for 50 survivors and their children in our 17 apartments, along with support in finding new housing with rental assistance and continued advocacy services. We will be providing more than $350,000 in financial assistance, and that includes certainly rental assistance and help with utilities, help with basic needs such as food, but also help to break down a variety of other barriers to safety and freedom, such as debt, rental arrears, car repairs, restoration of professional licenses, clothing, etc. And we'll be providing crucial information, referrals, and support during more than 6,000 helpline calls. Next slide, please. I'd like to share with you a survivor story that helps to illustrate the way that our services work. And I'll mention that the names and some personally identifying aspects of the survivor's experience have been changed in this story. So this is a story about a survivor we'll call Shana. When Shana first turned to New Beginnings for support, she was living with her boyfriend of 2 years named Terry. For the first 6 months of their relationship, Terry was attentive and caring, and Shana was thrilled to have found such a supportive boyfriend. It was when Shana landed an exciting new job that Terry's behavior started to change. At first, Terry focused on criticizing Shana's clothes and told her that she was too fat to wear them. Then Terry started to object when Shana went out with coworkers for a drink, and he would show up at the bar where they gathered. To Shana, it just seemed easier to go home with him than to make a scene in front of her friends. Soon, Terry started timing Shana's trips home from work and would scream and threaten if she was even just a few minutes late. Eventually, it seemed like Terry was unhappy with everything Shana did. He texted her constantly with complaints about her behavior. Finally, Terry told her to quit her job, and he let the air out of her tires a few mornings to make her late for work. When Shana refused to quit, Terry began to hit her in places others wouldn't see and tried to strangle her once. By the time she turned to us, Shauna's confidence had eroded. Her life had gotten much smaller, and she was afraid all the time. To make things worse, she had been laid off when her company's financial picture suffered due to the COVID crisis. Terry's behavior was becoming more erratic and controlling as he feared Shana would make him sick. Our advocate worked quickly with Shana to help her see that Terry's behavior fit into a pattern of coercive control that is common to domestic violence. She helped Shana develop some immediate strategies to stay safer while living with Terry, and to identify some people in her life who she could tell her story to and seek support. Shana met with her advocate for over 8 months, building her confidence, learning strategies to cope with trauma, clarifying her options, and gathering the courage to make a move. When Shana was ready, New Beginnings paid for her plane ticket so that she could travel to live with her sister in Florida, who welcomed her with open arms.
Susan, I'm sorry.
We also connected her with a local domestic violence agency that could offer continued support. And so it is for the many Shanas in our community that New Beginnings was founded, is here, and is committed to staying strong. Next slide, please. And so it really does truly take a village to end domestic violence. And I just want to thank you so much for considering New Beginnings for your support.
Thank you. We have extra time for questions.
Lynette, do we have any questions?
I think the 2 at the bottom are still from the last presentations, which I wrote down. So
Don't think we have any more questions.
I see a
I
couple
am
coming.
seeing questions pop up.
Well, I'm sorry. Shall I just, I'm seeing them come up too. Shall I just go ahead and answer them?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, our budget this year is around $3.9 million, and about 57% of that budget is funded by government contracts, City of Seattle, King County, Washington State, and the Federal Housing and Urban Development Department. And the remainder of that budget is supported by donors like you, individuals of all sizes, individual donations, I should say, of all sizes. I imagine they're physically of all sizes as well as foundation grants.
Yeah, the next question is, where are the people you serve typically located?
Yeah, well, we serve people from throughout Seattle as well as north of Seattle. But the truth is that for some of our services, survivors come from all over, particularly our home safe housing services. So we sometimes serve survivors from elsewhere in Washington State because they've needed to flee and get far away from their abusive partners, as well as from other parts of the country. But I would say for sure the majority of survivors that we serve are from Seattle or from kind of immediate suburbs such as Shoreline or Bellevue.
Okay. Tammy asks, how do clients learn about you?
Really from a variety of sources. If there's police intervention in a situation, our helpline is listed in the brochure that police give to survivors. Survivors are referred to us from medical providers and other human service providers. Sometimes survivors find us just through internet searches, and sometimes survivors come to us by word of mouth because a friend or a family member has accessed services through New Beginnings. So there's quite a wide array of ways that survivors turn to us.
The next question is from Karen. Oh, sorry, she just made a point. The next question is from Linda. What will you do with the money? If you,
we will use the money to provide sorry, let me try that again. We will use the funds for general support. I mentioned that we receive government funding, and government funding tends to be very restrictive. And so we utilize donations to fill in the gaps that government funding won't cover. So it enables us to support our advocates' salaries when they're not 100% covered by government funding. It enables us to support some of the administrative infrastructure so that we can provide human resource services and accounting. It helps us pay for rent. And it helps us to try new projects, such as the technology-enabled coercive control clinic that I mentioned to you. That's not funded by any source other than private donations, which give us the greatest flexibility to try new things and ensure that we can keep our operations running.
Next question is from Kim. Is demand up or down because of COVID?
Well, there's no question, as Danielle mentioned, that survivors are at higher risk because of COVID, either because they're in constant proximity to their abusers and they're experiencing increased frequency and intensity of abuse, or because COVID has destabilized their finances and they may be considering going back to their abusive partner. There's a whole bunch of cascading effects from COVID. And when the stay-at-home orders went into effect, calls to our helpline definitely decreased by about 38%, largely because we think survivors were being closely monitored and didn't really have a safe and private way to contact our helpline, and also to some degree because survivors were home with kids, were out of school, were not able to go to work where they might have been able to reach out in a safer environment. Although we were hearing from a lot of survivors in kind of in the aftermath of their relationship that we're experiencing a lot of negative effects because of COVID and not able to exercise options that they might have before. Since the first—
Susan, I'm sorry,
yes.
I have to cut you off there. I did write down the rest of the questions if we do have more time.
Oh, for sure.
Sorry about that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. The last one to present is Parent Trust, Linda McDaniels. Hi, Linda.
Hang on.
Hi, I just have to do a quick shout out to New Beginnings and Havens. You are my people. We refer to you from our family helpline. We love you. Thank you for everything that you do. I'm the executive director for Parent Trust. I've been with the organization 35 years. As you can probably tell, I love it. And I was just absolutely tickled pink to be invited to 100 Women Who Care, because that just sounds like being in with the cool crowd. So thank you so much for having me. I know it's going to sound strange, but I'm going to start with 3 events that happened 20 years ago that got to me where I am today in front of you. First of all, my boyfriend, my longtime boyfriend, we were trying to figure out how to celebrate our 20 years of being together. And he said, I know, let's get married and have a baby. And I said, oh, that sounds like a good time. And I became a mom, which is the hardest thing I've ever done. And I have done some hard things. And being a mom is the hardest thing that I've ever done. And I'm sure you guys, a lot of you understand what I mean when I say that. It's humbling, it's incredible, but it's tough. The second thing that happened is I got called by the governor's office and they asked me, I was working for Parent Trust, they asked me what percentage of child abuse and neglect is preventable? And I laughed and I said, is this a trick question? And they said, no, we're on speakerphone. There's 50 of us at the governor's office and we're arguing over what percentage of child abuse and neglect is preventable. And a couple of people said we should call you and find out. And is it 50%? Is it 80%? Is it 90%? And I said, this has got to be a trick question because 100% of child abuse and neglect is preventable. And they said, no, really, what percent is really preventable? And I said, no, not kidding. By definition, 100% of child abuse and neglect is preventable, and we should be headed for zero. So that led to the third thing that happened in 1999, which is they said, well, we want you to come down and talk to the Senate Human Services Committee about why you, stupid you, think that child abuse and neglect is 100% preventable. And so I did that. And during the hearing, a senator looked at me and said, and I will not tell you who the senator is. Do not ask me in the chat. I don't want any asking about who the senator is. The senator said to me, Ms. McDaniels, child abuse prevention is a luxury that Washington State cannot afford. And when I got my jaw off the floor, I said, Senator, child abuse prevention is the best investment you will ever make. And I have been saying that every day now for 20 years. It's so funny. My son, who is now 20, is sick of hearing it. And it's all that Parent Trust is about. We have 8 different programs. We serve 15,000 families. And everything we do is about trying to help parents from day one be able to stop the child abuse and neglect cycle. And for 100 Women Who Care, we talked about it with our team, and we said, what we really want to do with the money from your organization, if we are chosen, is we want to give it to 40 women who are pregnant, low income, and probably are suffering from substance addiction. And here is the reason why we made that choice. The pandemic has changed everything. It has made everything so much harder. We are getting hundreds of calls from panicked families. We've had 2,000 people go through our Zoom classes. But where we really see the struggle is with a lot of the families who are trying to birth during the pandemic, who have no income, and who, like I said, a lot of times are also trying not to relapse. So right now, even as we speak, we have, well, not right when we speak, but this week there were 4 pregnant moms who we drove laptops and earbuds up to, and they're in a chemical dependency treatment center receiving our parent education classes. And what we do is we teach parents how to safely take care of their children, how to bond from day one, how to be careful about postpartum depression and anxiety, catch that early, how to prevent shaken baby syndrome, how to make sure you know about infant safe sleep practices. It's everything you need to know about a baby from day one that maybe you were not taught how to do in your family. And so 40 women are waiting out there somewhere hoping, they're probably definitely already pregnant. And what we're going to be trying to do is make sure that they break the cycle and they have zero child abuse and neglect going forward. In addition to the 20 hours of instruction they'll receive, we also have a statewide family helpline, and so they'll get ongoing family help line support. We have parents who have been calling us for 15 years. We are there forever. We help kids graduate. In addition, they'll get developmental screenings. This is all in the Puget Sound area, and they'll get screenings for postpartum depression and anxiety. Babies can't wait. 90,000 babies are being born every year in Washington State. We have to help families from day one if we want to quit trying to repair the problems later on. Child abuse prevention is the best investment you'll ever make. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Linda. We have a little bit extra time, so go ahead and add questions to the chat, everyone.
No questions yet.
There we go. What are you saying, Lynette?
So first question is, what are the demographics of your clients?
So the clients that we're talking about serving for this project, the demographics are that about 60% are families who are white, about 40% are families of color. We have about 10% of families who are in same-sex relationships. We have about 10% of families who come from immigrant refugee backgrounds, and then there's about 5%, and it changes in different years, but it seems like it's settled around 5% who are dealing with disabilities. Does that answer that question?
Okay.
We had a question above that, Lynette, from Carol, and she just retyped it. What are the restrictions for the use of funds for the 40 women that you mentioned?
The restrictions, meaning, can you guys help me understand that question?
Carol, will you add a little more context to that in the chat?
Well, if I could speak up about that. In other words, what is it that they are to spend that money for, and what should they not spend the money for? How are they informed, and are there restrictions at all?
Well, the money would definitely go to pay for the instructors who are teaching the class and the parent educators. And then it would also go for the family helpline phone coaches and the developmental screeners who also are doing postpartum anxiety screening now. Did that answer that question?
So that I guess maybe I misunderstood when you said the money that would come, this is the money that you would use from us to these 40 women. So it's not really giving them the money. It's funding, that's what it sounded like. It's funding what they need with the money.
Thank you for clarifying that. I am so sorry if I wasn't clear on that. Yeah. I'd love to give them the money, just so you know. But yeah, it is to go to Parent Trust to offer the classes, to help get the technology, to help get them the screening, to help get them the family helpline.
Yeah.
Cool. The next question I have is from Karen. How long has Parent Trust existed, and where does your funding come from?
So we are just over 40 years old, and we're kind of like Susan. We're a whole combination of city grants, state grants. We get federal Child Abuse Prevention Treatment Act money. We have individual donors. We have fee for service, like we sell our book. We have a book that we sell called Pregnancy, Childbirth, and the Newborn. So it comes from a whole bunch of different United Ways, foundations, the whole thing.
Okay. I have another question from Elizabeth. How does PEPS fit in?
We love PEPS. They are our schnoodlebugs. We love PEPS. They actually rent a classroom for us when we're not in a pandemic. We cross-refer all the time with PEPS, but it's a different model than ours, and so we're really based on straight up parent education, pregnancy health, childbirth education, new parent education, newborn education.
I have the next question from Gio. What is your staffing like?
So we have 35 instructors. They range from 28 to 82 years old. Our 82-year-old instructor is world-renowned Penny Simpkin. I don't know if anybody knows her, but she is known all over the world, and she teaches when we're not in a pandemic. She teaches right down the hall every Wednesday night. So 35 instructors who are trained and certified through a 40-hour training.
Wow.
We have 20 seconds left.
Well, somebody commented, Penny still teaches for you, ? But
yes, she still teaches for us. We all went to her 80th birthday party. It was an all-day party. It was a hoot. So that'll give you inspiration. Thank you guys for asking such good questions and for having us all. I love being here together with New Beginnings in Havens.
Thank you. We have hit our
Thank you,
time.
Linda. Okay, thank you, Havens Community Connection, New Beginnings, Parent Trust, for taking the time to come to our Zoom and present. We will now have a group discussion, and we will try best to answer any questions folks may have in general about our donations, about our giving circle. It's totally open.
Paula, do you want, if we don't start seeing questions come in, do you want to kick the remainder of the questions that we had left over back to the presenters?
Yes, that would be a good idea. Thanks, Naomi.
Okay. I will start with Havens. We had a question from Sandy. Do you have any certified therapists or social workers volunteering?
Yes, they're the ones who have created the training program for our coaches. Yep, they are on the board. Yes.
Thank you, Danielle. I'll keep going in order and looping back until we have other questions come up. Then next question for New Beginnings. Cynthia wanted to know if there are income restrictions or charges for the clients.
No, well, first of all of our services are offered at no charge to our participants, and there are no income restrictions. Typically, about 82% of our participants are low income, but we serve any participant who turns, or any survivor who turns to us for support.
Thank you, Susan. And for Linda, for Parent Trust, we have a question. We had it come up twice, I think. The most recent is from Sherry. What is your typical budget for a year?
Our overall agency budget is right around $1 million. I was very excited when we went $1 over $1 million.
It's a new category. All right, we'll keep cycling through unless anybody adds to the chat. Another question for Havens from Tammy. How do you do your outreach in non-COVID times?
We do it through, I go out and speak a lot, and I used to go out and speak a lot. We've made our attempts through social media. A lot of it is word of mouth. Our volunteers do a lot of networking. Our clients come to us through doctors' offices or therapists who have heard about us, and also word of mouth.
Thank you, Danielle. Susan, we had a question from Carol. She said, what is your annual fundraiser? I think that might mean event. Or
Is the question our annual fundraising event, or?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
We, in a typical non-COVID year, we have two signature events. One is a cocktail party we call Ignite that takes place in the spring. And the other is a luncheon we call Empower that takes place during October, Domestic Violence Awareness Month. This year, we canceled our Ignite event and instead launched a spring fundraising campaign. And we had planned to do a virtual Empower this month, but due to some events outside of our control, we weren't able to move forward with it. So we're in the midst of an Empower fall campaign to try to recoup that income. We're committed to going back to our events in some form next year.
thank you,
I
Susan.
feel you, Susan. I feel you.
Naomi, how are we doing time-wise?
I think we should probably, to make sure we can get through what's left, we should probably move on. There were a couple more questions. I'm sorry we didn't get to all of them, but I think we need to keep, since we'll hit a hard limit pretty soon.
Okay, well, the next thing on our agenda is to select the nonprofits for our February event. And I'm going to turn that over to Lynette. She's got her fabulous hat that she puts all the bingo balls in. And she will be the one selecting 3 for February.
Yeah. So
Take it away.
I'll just pick 3 numbers and then compare it with my spreadsheet and see which ones we have. So no looking, but okay, got 17 on my spreadsheet. That is community passageways.
Okay.
I like that. We'll keep it there. And then let's see, got 89, which is global to local.
Oh, wow.
Oh my gosh, you just nominated that this week.
Yes.
Okay. Promise you, it wasn't on the top. And then the third one got 72, Team Survivor Northwest.
Can you say that again?
Team Survivor Northwest.
All right. Thank you, Lynette.
Yeah.
So for this event and choosing who we select to make our donation, we will be sending out an email tomorrow where everybody will be able to vote online. And we are still 116 strong. So that means that we can give 90% to the chosen nonprofit and 5% each to the other 2 nonprofits. We're very excited now that we can give something to each of the nonprofits. So voting email will come out tomorrow. Also, we have the diversity survey data. We've compiled it. We're very excited that we heard from 96 members. So we have a good view into what our membership looks like. And the core team will be looking at the data and coming up with some strategies to go forward, and also asking for ideas from our members on how we can support increasing the diversity of our membership and also our ongoing approach to increasing the diversity of the nonprofits that we nominate. So I want to say thank you all again for joining us this evening. It is a way for us to connect, and it looks like in September we'll be doing another Zoom meeting.
February.
And but it's better than not seeing each other. So we'll keep on moving forward, and we wish you all well. Stay healthy. Oh, I've got one more thing to say. We have now donated $87,712. With this last donation, we're going to come very close to $100,000 since our inception. And I think that's an awesome milestone.
Yay!
So closing with that piece of information, again, thank you all. Stay well, stay healthy. We'll be in touch. Newsletters will continue to come out, and we'll meet again in February. Good night, everybody.
Thanks so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you all.
Bye, guys.
Good
Be
night.
well.
Thank
Be
you.
well. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Good night.
Take care.